The Earth was cold, very, very cold. For thousands of years, ice covered most of the planet. Big glaciers sat on top of where cities used to be. The world was quiet, with only the sound of wind and cracking ice. But something was about to change. High up in space, a big ship appeared. It wasn't from Earth. The ship was long and shiny, like a giant silver fish. Inside, creatures called the Zorax looked at the blue and white planet below. Captain Zell, the leader of the Zorax, stood on the bridge of the ship. He had blue skin and 4 arms. His big eyes blinked as he looked at the screens showing Earth. "What a cold planet," Zell said to his crew. "It's all ice. The Zorax were explorers. They traveled across the galaxy looking for new worlds. They had seen many planets, but Earth was special. It had the right size and was in the right place to have life. But it was too cold." Zell turned to his science officer, Vela. She had long tentacles instead of arms and was very smart. "Vela, what do you think? Can we warm up this planet?" Vela's tentacles moved over her computer. "Yes, Captain. We can use our sun mirrors to melt the ice. It will take time, but we can do it." Zell nodded. He was excited. Maybe they could make this planet a new home. "Okay, let's do it. Start the warming process." The crew got busy. They sent out small ships that carried big mirrors. These mirrors floated in space around Earth. They caught the sun's light and sent it to the planet, making it warmer. Days passed, then weeks. The Zorax watched and waited. Slowly, things started to change. The top layer of ice began to melt. Small pools of water appeared. The air got a little warmer. Zell was happy. "Look, it's working," he said to his crew. They all cheered. But then something strange happened. As more ice melted, the Zorax saw things under the ice. There were shapes of buildings and roads. Vela was surprised. "Captain, look at this. There used to be cities here." Zell couldn't believe it. Cities? But that means there was life here before the ice? The Zorax became very curious. They sent down small robot probes to look closer. The robots sent back pictures of old buildings, cars, and other things from a lost world. "This is amazing," Exel said. "But what happened to the creatures who lived here? Did they all die when it got cold?" Nobody knew the answer. The Zorax kept warming the planet, but now they were even more excited. They weren't just melting ice. They were uncovering the secrets of a lost world. As more ice melted, they saw more things. Forests started to appear. Small plants began to grow. The planet was waking up after a long, cold sleep. One day, Vela called Zell to her screen. "Captain, you need to see this." Zell came over. On the screen, he saw something moving in a valley that had just appeared from under the ice. It was small, but it was alive. "What is it?" Zell asked, his eyes wide with wonder. Vela zoomed in the camera. They saw a small animal, something like a furry rat, running across the newly exposed ground. "Life!" Zell shouted. "There's still life on this planet." The whole ship was buzzing with excitement. They had thought they were just warming up a dead, frozen world. But now they knew that life had survived somehow. Zell made a big decision. "We need to go down there," he said. "We need to see this world for ourselves." The Zorax prepared to land on Earth. They put on special suits to protect them from the planet's air, which was different from theirs. They were nervous but excited. As their ship came down through the clouds, they saw a world that was a mix of ice and green. There were still many glaciers, but also valleys with small plants and even some trees. They landed in a big valley. Zell was the first to step out. His foot sank into soft, wet ground. He looked around, amazed at what he saw. The air was cold but getting warmer. Small streams of water ran everywhere as more ice melted. In the distance, he could see the ruins of an old human city, still half covered in ice. "It's beautiful," Exel said. The other Zorax nodded in agreement. They began to explore. They found more animals coming out of hiding. Small insects buzzed around new flowers. It was like the whole planet was waking up. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. As they walked near the old ruins, Vela's instruments started beeping. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking, "I'm picking up strange signals. They're coming from underground." Zell looked at her, confused. "Underground? What kind of signals?" Vela worked on her device. They're artificial signals, like from machines or computers." The Zorax looked at each other in shock. Artificial signals meant only one thing: intelligent life. But how? Exel asked. How could anything survive down there for so long? They didn't have answers, but they knew they had to find out. The Zorax had come to Earth thinking it was a dead world they could make new. Instead, they found a planet full of secrets and surprises. Zell looked at his crew. They were all eager to learn more. "Well," he said, "I guess we have a new mission now. Let's find out who or what is sending those signals." As the sun set on this new, warmer Earth, the Zorax prepared for a big adventure. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to meet the survivors of the human race. And nothing would ever be the same again. The Ice Age was ending. A new age was beginning. And two very different peoples were about to come face to face. Deep under the ice and frozen ground, something amazing was happening. Humans were still alive. When the Ice Age started thousands of years ago, some smart people knew they had to do something big to survive. They built huge underground cities. These cities were like giant bunkers, safe from the cold and ice above. At first, many people didn't believe the warnings about the coming Ice Age. But as it got colder and colder, more people moved underground. They brought animals, plants, and everything they needed to live. Life underground wasn't easy. People had to work hard to keep everything running. They grew food in special rooms with artificial light. They recycled everything. Nothing was wasted. Over time, the people changed. They got used to living in the dark. Their skin got paler. Their eyes got better at seeing in low light. They became a new kind of human, adapted to life underground. Now, thousands of years later, the underground cities were still alive. One of the biggest was called Haven. It was home to over 10,000 people. In Haven, a young woman named Zara was excited. She worked in the communications center, listening for any signs from the outside world. For years, there had been nothing but static. But today was different. Zara heard something new on her headphones. It wasn't static. It was a strange humming sound. "Elder Thomas," she called out. "I think you need to hear this." Elder Thomas was one of the oldest and wisest people in Haven. He walked over to Zara's station. His wrinkled face looked curious. Zara gave him the headphones. Elder Thomas listened. His eyes got wide. This is not one of our signals," he said slowly. "It's coming from outside." The news spread fast through Haven. People gathered in the big central cave, talking excitedly. Could it really be a signal from outside? What did it mean? Elder Thomas called a meeting of the council. The council was a group of smart people who made decisions for Haven. They met in a round room with glowing stones for light. "We need to send someone to the surface," Elder Thomas said. "We need to know what's happening up there. This was a big deal." Nobody had been to the surface in living memory. It was supposed to be too cold, too dangerous. After a lot of talk, the council agreed. They would send a small team to the surface. Zara, who first heard the signal, would go. With her would go Ren, a strong young man who knew how to fix things, and Dr. Lena, who knew about the outside world from old books. The team got ready. They put on special suits made to protect them from the cold. They packed food and tools. Everyone in Haven came to see them off. The journey to the surface was long and hard. They had to climb through old tunnels that nobody had used in years. Sometimes they had to dig through fallen rocks. Finally, after what seemed like forever, they reached the big door that led outside. It was huge and made of strong metal. It hadn't been opened in thousands of years. Ren worked on the door. It took hours, but finally, with a loud creak, it started to open. Bright light poured in. Zara, Ren, and Dr. Lena had to cover their eyes. They had never seen anything so bright. Slowly, carefully, they stepped outside. What they saw amazed them. The world wasn't covered in ice anymore. There was green grass, trees with leaves. Flowers! The air was warm, not freezing cold like they expected. "It's beautiful," Zara said, her voice full of wonder. They walked around, touching the plants, feeling the warm sun on their faces. It was like a dream. But then they saw something that made them stop. In the distance was a huge silver object. It was bigger than anything they had ever seen. "It was the alien ship! What is that?" Ren asked, his voice shaking a little. Dr. Lena looked excited. "I don't believe it," she said. "If I didn't know better, I'd say that looks like a spaceship." They didn't know whether to be scared or excited. They decided to get closer and look. As they got near the ship, they saw strange creatures coming out. The aliens. The humans hid behind some bushes and watched. The aliens were blue and had 4 arms. They looked just as surprised by the world around them as the humans were. "We need to tell Haven about this," Zara said. The others agreed. They started to go back, but then Ren tripped and fell. He made a loud noise. The aliens turned and saw them. For a moment, nobody moved. The humans and aliens just stared at each other. Both sides were shocked to see the other. Then one of the aliens, who seemed to be the leader, stepped forward. He held out his hands to show he was friendly. Zara, feeling brave, stood up and stepped out. She held out her hands too. The alien leader spoke. The words were strange, but somehow Zara could understand the meaning. It was like the alien's thoughts were going straight into her head. "We are the Zorax," the alien said in Zara's mind. "We came to explore this world. We did not know anyone lived here." "Who are you?" Zara took a deep breath. "We are humans," she said. "We have lived underground for a very long time. We thought we were alone." The alien, whose name was Xel, seemed amazed. "You survived the Great Ice? How?" Zara, Ren, and Dr. Lena told the aliens about Haven and the other underground cities. They explained how humans had lived for thousands of years, waiting for the ice to melt. The aliens were impressed. Xel told the humans how they had come to Earth thinking it was just a frozen ball, how they had used their technology to melt the ice. "We didn't know we were waking up a whole civilization," Xel said. Both sides had so many questions for each other. They talked for hours. Finally, Zara knew they had to go back to Haven. They needed to tell everyone what had happened. "Will you come with us?" she asked the aliens. "Our people should meet you," Xel agreed. A small group of aliens would go with the humans to Haven. As they walked back to the entrance of Haven, Zara felt excited. She knew everything was about to change. Humans were not alone anymore. The long, cold years underground were over. A new age was beginning. An age where humans and aliens would learn from each other. An age of new discoveries and new friendships. The ice had melted. The Earth was waking up, and so were its people, ready to step into a bright new future. The journey back to Haven was filled with excitement and nervousness. Zara, Ren, and Dr. Lena led the way, with Captain Xel and 2 other Zorax following close behind. The aliens looked around with wonder at the dark tunnels, so different from their bright spaceship. As they got closer to Haven, Zara started to worry. "What if our people get scared?" she whispered to Ren. "The Zorax look so different." Ren nodded. "We'll just have to help everyone understand," he said. Like we did. Finally, they reached the big metal door of Haven. Zara took a deep breath and pushed the button to open it. With a loud creak, the door slowly swung open. A crowd of people was waiting on the other side. Elder Thomas stood at the front, his eyes wide with shock as he saw the aliens. For a moment, everything was quiet. The people of Haven stared at the Zorax, and the Zorax stared back. Then someone in the crowd screamed. "Monsters!" they yelled. "They've brought monsters!" Panic spread through the crowd. People started to run and shout. Some grabbed tools to use as weapons. "Wait!" Zara yelled. "They're friendly. Please listen to us." But in the chaos, no one was listening. The Zorax, scared by the reaction, started to back away. Suddenly, a loud whistle cut through the noise. Everyone turned to see Elder Thomas holding up his hands. "Silence!" he shouted. His voice was strong and calm. "Let's not act like scared children. If Zara and the others brought these beings here, they must have a good reason." The crowd calmed down a little. Elder Thomas turned to Zara. "Explain," he said simply. Zara stepped forward. Her voice shook a little, but she spoke clearly. She told everyone about the warm world outside, about meeting the Zorax, and how the aliens had helped melt the ice. As she spoke, the people of Haven listened in amazement. The idea of a warm world outside, of alien visitors, it was almost too much to believe. When Zara finished, Elder Thomas turned to the Zorax. "Can you speak?" he asked. Captain Xel stepped forward. Like before, when he spoke, his thoughts seemed to go straight into everyone's minds. "We are the Zorax," he said. "We came to explore your world. We did not know anyone lived here. We are sorry if we scared you." The people of Haven were amazed. They could understand the alien perfectly. Elder Thomas, always wise, saw a chance for peace. Perhaps, he said, we could continue this talk somewhere more comfortable. Our great hall has room for all, Captain Zell agreed. Slowly, carefully, the strange group made their way to the Great Hall of Haven. The Great Hall was the biggest room in Haven. It had tall ceilings with glowing stones for light. Long tables filled the room. The humans and Zorax sat down, still watching each other nervously. Elder Thomas stood at the front of the room. Today is a historic day, he said. For the first time in thousands of years, we have met someone from outside our home. Yes, they are different from us. But different doesn't mean bad. He turned to Captain Zell. Please tell us about yourselves. Why did you come to our world? Captain Zell stood up. He told the people of Haven about the Zorax, how they traveled through space exploring new worlds. He explained how they found Earth covered in ice and decided to warm it up. We thought we were just melting ice, Zell said. We never imagined we'd wake up a whole civilization. The people of Haven listened in wonder. Some were still scared, but many were getting excited. The idea of space travel, of other worlds, it was like something from the old stories. Then Dr. Lena had an idea. She whispered to Elder Thomas, who nodded. Captain Ixell, Dr. Lena said, standing up, we have lived underground for so long. Most of us have never seen the sky. Could you show us what space looks like? Zell's eyes lit up. Of course, he said. He pulled out a small device. With a click, it projected a huge image on the wall of the Great Hall. Everyone gasped. The image showed stars, more than anyone in Haven had ever imagined. Colorful clouds of gas and dust filled the picture. Strange, beautiful objects that Dr. Lena called galaxies swirled in the darkness. That, Ixell said, is what we see when we travel between worlds. The people of Haven were speechless. This view of the universe was more amazing than anything they had ever seen. As the day went on, the humans and Zorax started to relax around each other. They asked each other questions, shared stories, and even started to joke together. The children of Haven were the first to really warm up to the aliens. They were fascinated by the Zorax's 4 arms and blue skin. Soon, Ixell was giving rides to giggling kids, lifting them up with his strong arms. Meanwhile, the scientists of Haven were deep in conversation with the Zorax scientists. They traded knowledge about plants, animals, and how to survive in tough conditions. Both sides were learning so much. As night fell, even though it was always dark underground, Elder Thomas called for everyone's attention again. Friends, he said, looking at both humans and Zorax, today has been a day of wonders. We have learned that we are not alone in the universe. We have made new friends. He turned to Captain Zell. We thank you for the warmth you've brought back to our world. But now we face a new challenge. How do we rejoin the world above? Zell nodded. We would be honored to help, he said. Together, we can build a new future for this planet. A cheer went up from the crowd. The fear from earlier was gone, replaced by hope and excitement. As the meeting ended, Zara found herself standing next to Captain Zell. I was so worried at first, she admitted. I thought our people might never accept each other. Zell made a sound that Zara realized was a laugh. First meetings are always hard, he said. But look around. Already we're starting to understand each other. Zara looked. She saw humans and Zorax talking, laughing, and sharing food. She saw children teaching aliens how to play underground games. She saw scientists from both species drawing plans together. You're right, she said, smiling. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Zell nodded. The beginning of a great adventure, he said. Together we'll rebuild this world. And then who knows? Maybe someday we'll explore the stars together. As Zara looked around the great hall, filled with the happy sounds of 2 species becoming friends, she felt a warmth in her heart. The long, cold, lonely years were over. A new age was beginning. An age of friendship, discovery, and endless possibilities. The first contact between humans and aliens had been scary at first, but now it was clear. This was the start of something wonderful. The next few days in Haven were busy and exciting. The Zorax were eager to learn about how humans had survived underground for so long. Captain Ixell asked Elder Thomas to show them around the city. We want to understand your way of life, Ixell said. How did you manage to live here for thousands of years? Elder Thomas nodded. It wasn't easy, he said, but humans are good at adapting. Let me show you. The tour started in the farm areas. These were huge caves filled with plants growing under special lights. The Zorax were amazed. You grow food without sunlight? Asked Vela, the Zorax scientist. Ren, who worked in the farms, explained. We use special lamps that copy sunlight. And we recycle everything. The waste from our homes feeds the plants. The plants clean our air and give us food. Vela's eyes widened. Incredible. Such an efficient system. Next, they visited the water recycling plant. Here, all the water in Haven was cleaned and used again and again. Nothing was wasted. Our biggest challenge was always water, Elder Thomas said. We had to learn to use every drop wisely. Captain Exel shook his head in wonder. On our world, we never had to think about saving water. There was always plenty. You humans are so resourceful. The tour continued to the school. Here, young humans were learning about the old world, about science, and about how to keep Haven running. Dr. Lena, who taught at the school, explained to the Zorax. Education is very important to us. Every child learns not just reading and math, but also how to fix machines, grow food, and solve problems. Your children seem so capable, said Zell, watching a group of kids working on a broken machine. They have to be, Dr. Lena said. In Haven, everyone has an important job to do, even the children. As they walked, Zara noticed the Zorax were looking more and more impressed. She felt proud of her people. The last stop on the tour was the Memory Hall. This was a special place where Haven kept records of their history. The walls were covered with pictures and writing, telling the story of how humans came underground. Elder Thomas stood in the middle of the room. This is where we remember, he said. It wasn't easy in the beginning. Many people died. We had to learn so much so quickly. He pointed to a picture of people huddled in a cave looking cold and scared. This was the first year underground. We almost gave up then. The Zorax looked at the picture, then at the humans around them. They seemed to be realizing just how much the humans had overcome. But you didn't give up, Zell said softly. You kept going. Elder Thomas nodded. We had no choice. We had to survive for our children, for the future. He showed them more pictures. Humans building the first underground farms. People celebrating the birth of the first cave baby. A group working together to fix a broken air filter. Every challenge made us stronger, Elder Thomas said. We learned to work together, to solve problems, to never give up hope. The Zorax were quiet for a long time after seeing all this. Finally, Captain Zell spoke. We came to your world thinking we were rescuing a dead planet, he said. But now I see we were wrong. We didn't rescue you. You rescued yourselves long before we arrived. Zell turned to his crew. We have much to learn from these humans, he said. Their resilience, their creativity, their ability to adapt. It's unlike anything we've seen in our travels. Zara felt a warm glow of pride. She had always known her people were strong, but seeing the aliens so impressed made her realize just how special humans were. But Elder Thomas wasn't finished with the tour. He led everyone to a small room off the main hall. Inside was a single object, an old, dusty radio. This, Elder Thomas said, is why we never lost hope. He turned on the radio. At first there was only static, but then faintly they could hear a voice. It was broken and hard to understand, but it was there. What is it? Asked Vela, leaning closer. It's a message, said Elder Thomas. From other survivors. We've been listening to it for generations. The message was short and repeated over and over. We are here. We are alive. Don't give up. There are more of you? Zell asked, surprised. Elder Thomas nodded. We believe so. Other underground cities like ours. We've never been able to contact them directly, but knowing they're out there, it gave us strength. The Zorax looked at each other, excitement growing in their eyes. We can help you find them, Zell said. With our technology, we can locate the source of this signal. The humans in the room gasped. The idea of meeting other survivors, of not being alone anymore, it was almost too much to believe. You would do that for us? Zara asked, her voice shaking with emotion. Zell put a hand on her shoulder. Of course, he said. It's the least we can do. Your people have survived so much. Now it's time for all of you to come together again. As the news spread through Haven, a new energy filled the city. People who had lived their whole lives underground started to dream of a bigger world, of new friends to meet, of a future under the open sky. That night, there was a big celebration in the Great Hall. Humans and Zorax ate together, shared stories, and made plans for the future. As Zara watched her people laughing and talking with the aliens, she realized something important. The humans of Haven had always been survivors, but now they were becoming explorers too. "What are you thinking?" Ren asked, coming to stand beside her. Zara smiled. "I'm thinking about how far we've come," she said. "Our ancestors came down here to survive, but we're going back up to live." Ren nodded. "It's a bit scary," he admitted, "but exciting too. That's what makes us human," Zara said. "We're always ready for the next challenge." As the celebration went on around them, Zara and Ren looked at each other and grinned. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Whatever came next, the people of Haven would face it together, and now they had new friends to help them along the way. The long night of the Ice Age was over. A new dawn was coming, and the resilient people of Haven were ready to step into the light. The day had finally come. After weeks of preparation, the people of Haven were ready to leave their underground home and step into the world above. The excitement in the air was almost electric. Zara stood near the big door, her heart pounding. She looked around at her friends and family, all wearing special suits designed by the Zorax to protect them from the bright sunlight their eyes weren't used to. "Are you ready?" Ren asked, standing beside her. He looked nervous but excited. Zara nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be," she said with a smile. Elder Thomas stepped forward, leaning on his cane. Despite his age, his eyes sparkled with excitement. "Let us step into our new future," he said, his voice strong. With a loud creak, the big door of Haven opened. Bright light flooded in, and the people of Haven gasped. Even through their protective visors, it was brighter than anything they had ever seen. Slowly, carefully, they stepped out. The warmth of the sun on their skin, the feeling of soft grass under their feet, the smell of fresh air, it was overwhelming. Many people cried with joy. Captain Zell and the other Zorax watched with happiness as their new friends experienced the world above for the first time. "Welcome home," Zell said softly. Over the next few days, the humans of Haven started to build a new settlement on the surface. The Zorax helped, using their advanced technology to create comfortable homes and buildings. But the biggest surprise came a week after they had moved to the surface. The Zorax ships picked up a signal it was coming from another underground city. "We found them," Vela announced excitedly. "The other survivors you heard on the radio. They're about 500 miles from here." The news spread quickly. Soon, a team was organized to go meet the other survivors. Zara, Ren, and Dr. Lena volunteered to go, along with Captain Zell and a few other Zorax. The journey was easy in the Zorax's fast ships. When they arrived at the other city, called New Light, the scene was much like when the Zorax first came to Haven. The people were scared at first, but soon they understood. There were hugs, tears, and lots of talking as the people of Haven met their long-lost cousins. The people of New Light were amazed to learn about the aliens and the changed world above. "We've been down here for so long," said Maya, the leader of New Light. "We almost gave up hope of ever seeing the sky again." Over the next few months, more underground cities were found. Each time there was a joyful reunion. The human race was coming together again, with help from their new alien friends. As summer turned to fall, the humans and Zorax started to plan for the future. They held a big meeting with leaders from all the underground cities and the Zorax. "We need to decide how to rebuild our world," Elder Thomas said, "and how we can work together with the Zorax." There was a lot to talk about. How would they govern themselves? How would they use the land? How could they use Zorax technology without becoming dependent on it? Captain Zell stood up. "We don't want to take over your world," he said. "We want to help you rebuild and learn from you too. Perhaps we can create something new together, a society that takes the best from both our cultures." The idea was exciting. Humans had learned so much about working together and using resources wisely. The Zorax had advanced technology and knowledge of other worlds. Together they could do amazing things. They decided to start by building a new city. It would be a place where humans from all the underground cities could live and where Zorax could stay when they visited Earth. They would use human ideas about recycling and community and Zorax technology to make it work. They chose a beautiful valley for the new city. Zara suggested they call it Aurora, after the colorful lights in the sky that humans had legends about but hadn't seen in thousands of years. Building Aurora was a big job, but everyone worked together. Humans and Zorax worked side by side, learning from each other. There were challenges and disagreements sometimes, but they always found a way to work things out. As Aurora grew, it became a symbol of hope and cooperation. It had tall buildings made of special materials that cleaned the air. There were parks full of plants from both Earth and the Zorax homeworld. The streets had cars that floated above the ground using Zorax technology. But the most special place in Aurora was the Learning Center. Here, humans and Zorax shared knowledge. Humans taught about history, art, and how to survive in tough conditions. Zorax taught about space, advanced science, and other worlds they had visited. Zara often visited the Learning Center. She loved seeing young humans and Zorax learning together, curious about each other's worlds. One day, as she watched a class, Captain Zell came to stand beside her. "It's amazing, isn't it?" he said. "A few months ago, we didn't even know each other existed. Now look at us." Zara nodded. "We've both changed so much," she said. "Humans are learning to live in the sun again, to trust, to dream big. And the Zorax. We've learned the value of resilience," Zell finished, "and the power of hope. Your people never gave up, even in the darkest times. It's inspired us to look at the universe in a new way."